Ally McCoist slams Russell Martin as the Genk disaster turns toxic, fans boycott in their thousands and pressure on the board explodes. Chermiti delivers a performance so poor he touched the ball fewer times than Jack Butland, while Diamande's red card leaves Rangers with more questions than answers. Andrew Cavenagh gets smacked in the face by a furious Ibrox rebellion as whispers of Sean Dyche and Steven Gerrard swirl around the manager's chair. And just when you thought it couldn't get more surreal, a wild suggestion emerges to make James Tavernier the next manager. You need to see this to believe it. Well, that's how you don't start a European campaign. You could feel it in the air before kickoff at Ibrox. It wasn't excitement, it was dread. And right enough, Rangers delivered another lifeless performance, this time going down 1-0 to Genk with a goal from, would you believe it, a former Celtic striker. You couldn't write it. The mood was grim, the stadium was half empty, with over 12,000 deciding they had better places to be than watching that kind of football. The boos rained down at full time, and the pressure is now well and truly strangling Russell Martin in the Ibrox dugout. Ally McCoist, never one to mince his words, was scathing. He said the place was flat, dead, lifeless, not just on the pitch, but in the stands. And that's the real warning sign. When your crowd stops caring, you're done. McCoist even said he can't see things turning around under Martin. And let's be honest, neither can you? 4 wins from 14 matches, a win percentage of just under 29%, and all that after spending £22.3 million on a squad rebuild. No excuses about injuries, no excuses about players settling in. It's just not good enough. And yet, Andrew Cavenagh is still backing him. You had the board watching from the director's box as the team fell flat again, but the only ones taking action were the fans outside the ground, protesting, boycotting, demanding change. Now we're looking at Livingston away, a boggy pitch, a scrap of a match, and the same group of players who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else than on that pitch against Genk. If Martin doesn't win this, surely it's curtain. But here's the rub. McCoist still thinks Martin will be in charge for that game. He gave a 3-word response when asked if he'd be sacked before the weekend. Yes, I do. So what are we doing here? Waiting for the next disaster to finally push the board into action? If it's already over, why drag it out? If Russell Martin was appointed by the board to be the man to lead Rangers forward, what does it say about the board that they're clinging on to him even now? Should the board face the same level of pressure and criticism as Martin himself, or are they getting away with ruining this season from the shadows? Most folk will be raging about Mohamed Diamande's red card, and fair enough, he did win the ball, but his studs went high after, and the ref couldn't wait to flash the red. But let's be honest, even with 11, it didn't look like Rangers were going to lay a glove on Genk. Still, Diamande's dismissal cost the team. Ally McCoist called it bang on. He didn't mean it, but he left his teammates in the lurch. That said, he wasn't the worst player on the park. No, that title goes to Youssef Chermiti, a player Rangers paid £8 million for, potentially rising to £10 million, who delivered a performance so anonymous he had fewer touches than Jack Butland. That's right. The goalkeeper had the ball more than your so-called striker. Let's put it in numbers. 0 shots, 10 accurate passes, 1 key pass, 10 times he gave the ball away, 24 touches total. That's fewer than Diamand, who got sent off, fewer than Antman, who came on as a sub, and miles off Butland's 45. Look, it's tough playing up front alone, but this is Rangers. If you wear that badge and cost that much, you're expected to deliver, especially when Bojan Miovski, a proven goal scorer who netted just days ago, is sat twiddling his thumbs on the bench. We were told Chermiti was one for the future, but when the present is this rotten, you can't afford to be sentimental. Martin's got 3 games to save himself. Livingston, Sturm Graz, and Falkirk, all away from home. He'd better get Miovski on that park before it's too late. And let me ask you this, if Russell Martin keeps picking his vanity signings over actual goal scorers like Miovski, does he deserve any more time in that job? You could hear it in every corner of Ibrox, and if Andrew Cavenagh didn't feel it in his bones, he certainly heard it with his own ears. Boos echoing across the stands, chants ringing out, "Martin, get to F 'em." The so-called fortress of Ibrox, half empty and full of fury. The man from across the pond who bought into this club, dreaming of European nights under the lights, found himself watching a horror show instead. 38,000 in attendance, a far cry from a full house, and those who did show up let their feelings be known. You don't need to read a boardroom memo to know the rebellion is already well underway. Scott Arfield, speaking on TNT Sports, said it best. This crowd is disillusioned. The connection between players and support is broken. And for Cavenagh, who likely saw Ibrox as a shining European project with promise and profit, what he witnessed on Thursday wasn't potential, it was crisis. After the final whistle, Martin revealed he was heading for showdown talks with Cavenagh. And while they were probably planned already, the timing couldn't be worse. Or, depending how you see it, couldn't be better, because now the whispers have begun. Sean Dyche, tough, no nonsense, Premier League pedigree available. Steven Gerrard, the man who stopped the 10, still beloved by many in the support even after his messy exit. The bookies aren't daft. They know something's bubbling. Even TalkSport, got in on the drama, with Alan Brazil teasing the idea of Gerrard's return and Ray Parlour hinting Dyche might be stalling his next move just in case Rangers comes calling. Because make no mistake, despite everything, this is still one of the biggest jobs in football. Now, the question for Cavenagh is simple. Does he have the nerve and the vision to fix this before it's too late? Or will he stick with a failing project to save face in the short term? And here's what you really need to think about. Would bringing back Steven Gerrard now be a genius move that reunites the club and fan base? Or just a desperate attempt to paper over the cracks caused by years of boardroom failure? When you think things can't get any madder around Ibrox, someone always finds a way to raise the stakes. With Russell Martin dangling by a thread, supporters calling for his head, and performances collapsing faster than a cheap gazebo. In a Glasgow storm, a new suggestion popped up this week that had jaws hitting the floor. James Tavernier, yes, that Tavernier, being floated by one supporter, not just as a leader on the pitch, but as the next Rangers manager, or worse, as assistant to Russell Martin. You couldn't make it up. Now, Sky Sports' Gordon Duncan called the idea wacky, and he's being polite. Tavernier is many things, but popular among the support right now, hardly. You've seen the mood, you've heard the groans every time he jogs over to take a set piece, and this after years wearing the armband during some of the most humiliating defeats in the club's history, and yet there he is, still starting, still captaining, still immune to the kind of scrutiny most players would be buried under by now. Max Aarons was brought in, played like a lost tourist, and was booted to the bench. Tavernier, undroppable apparently. Rangers are 11th in the league. The defense has shipped 19 goals already. Martin's win rate barely hitting 30%, and Tavernier remains the constant through it all. A symbol of the stagnation, the drift, the slow fade from dominance to dysfunction. And here's the most galling part. While many of you were crying out for him to be sold in the summer, he's now likely to see out the final year of his contract. At this point, he might outlast Martin and the next manager. Look, if Martin goes, and all signs point to that happening soon, Andrew Cavenagh and the 49ers better get the next appointment right, because their credibility's already hanging by a thread after bringing Martin in the first place. But let me throw this one into the mix. If James Tavernier is still starting every match and wearing the armband no matter the result, is he really just a player at this point? Or is he untouchable? And more to the point, is Tavernier part of the solution, or has he become the heart of the problem? If you've made it this far, you know the situation at Ibrox is beyond breaking point. If you're as fed up as the rest of us, do the right thing. Smash that like button to show you've had enough of the excuses and drop this in the comments. Sack Russell Martin. Let's flood it. Let's be heard.